Okay, so welcome everyone. Before we get started, just a few things that I'd like to say. It helps if everybody mutes themselves while there's somebody else speaking, because the Zoom cannot really handle a number of people talking at once. And also, I should mention that this is being recorded, and also that we have some reporters that may be present. So welcome, everyone. I have to say, of course, that these are difficult times, and there are a lot of people who have various illnesses, not just COVID, and I'm thinking of people like Sharmeen and others, and I wish them well. And of course, this was supposed to be something that I was going to do in collaboration with my sister Niaz, but unfortunately she hasn't been well. And although she's joined us, she won't be staying. She might just say a few words to us. And of course, like a true thespian, she insisted that we go ahead, and that's what we do. The show must go on. And that's important. And of course, this is a kind of a collaborative venture. The book was not just my sister and I collaborating on it. The book was the result of the contributions of many, many people. And theater may be one of the most ephemeral of the arts, but it is also very collaborative, and we couldn't do what we do without the support of people. Our book is dedicated to the cast and crew and directors who are not with us, but we should also say that important part of our endeavor is the part played by supporters and by the audience. And it's wonderful that we are able to record some of this for future generations. And this is not just about our book. This is, a celebration of what we did, and a tribute to all of us who were involved and who still, over so many years, so many decades, still remain involved. And of course, it is sad that many of them cannot be with us. So I would like to ask Niaz if she wishes to say a few words, and then we will proceed. So, Baji, are you able to say hello to the group?
Good evening and good morning. As Raza said, I am not too well and I will not be on video. I hope I can stay the entire meeting, but I do not promise. But I did want to thank everyone. As Raza said, that there are two names on the cover of the book, but it has been a collaborative effort. We could not have written the book if we did not get so much help from so many people. I am not going to name them today, but to let you know how many people we thanked, there are 4 pages of acknowledgements in curtain call. So as Raza said, I repeat, this is very much a collaborative effort. We reached out to people, they gave us information, they gave us photos, they gave us press clippings. Unfortunately, I was in a hurry to bring the book out to catch the Dhaka Lit Fest. So some of the information came too late to be included in the book. And some of the information we gathered as we had these virtual meetings. And I really must thank Amina for dredging through her archives and bringing out material that I did not know about and that would have been lost. And I hope that there will be a second edition of the book in which this information will be included, maybe a Kindle revised edition. And for your information, it is so important to document things. Drama might be ephemeral, but it isn't. And it shouldn't be. And you will be happy to know that someone bought the book specifically because she wanted to do some research about that period. I would also like to express my thanks to Jasmine Smith, whose memory site helped us to reach out to so many people and helped so many people to get in touch with us with their memories of English language theatre, not just in Dhaka, but also in Chittagong. Finally, I would like to, not finally, but towards the end, I would like to thank Durdana for joining the meeting, my sister Raza, Asghar, and my sister Durdana for joining this event and agreeing to speak about the Thespians. To Amina, whom I have thanked before, for not only the material she provided, but also for reaching out to people like Shahid Sheikh and Yasmin. Thank you, Amina. Thank you, Dudana. Thank you, Kaisar, for participating in today's. Finally, I must thank Raza, not only for collaborating with me on the book, but also for putting this virtual meeting together. You do not know how meticulous he is, but he has had several meetings in small groups so that this could be an event to remember. Finally, thanks to all of you who are attending today. And I hope that 2022 will be a good year for all of us. So I end here and I wish you, a wonderful meeting. I'll try to be here with you as long as I can. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thanks.
Raji.
Thanks.
Appreciate it,
Thank you.
much appreciated. And anyway, in the theater business, we usually have understudies. So Durdana is a kind of understudy here. I would be sharing the screen as there are a few slides that I want to show. I also want to mention that we are covering some ground that we've covered before because we've had 2 prior meetings. So just to put things in context a little bit, we talked a great deal about the amateurs, the thespians. We also talked about the Students' Drama Society, and we paid special tribute to a few people, including Farida Majid, who had passed away. And also we paid tribute to Bhutan, who had not been well at the time. And I hope he is able to attend. Now, of course, those who are not able to attend, we'll make sure that they get links. All right, so I'm sharing the screen now. Okay, so you can now see my PowerPoint. And I also always, in the past, have started with this quote from Van Gogh's letter. And it's something that I read last time. And I'd like to read this because it explains why we're doing what we're doing. And here's what it says. And the memories of all we have loved stay and come back to us in the evening of our life. They are not dead, but sleep. And it is well to gather a treasure. So in previous meetings, in our first meeting, we read a long list, and I'm sure it's not a complete list of people who had passed away. And, there were more people who passed away by the time we had our next meeting. And of course, recently we heard the sad news of a few people who had left us. Among them, I should mention Bhutan's sister, Halima, her married name was Halima Kabir, also known as Rekha, who had acted in 12th Night. And with the Thespians. Also, of course, should mention Shahana Rab, who had acted in Merchant of Venice and As You Like It. And of course, her sister is here with us. And then we also heard the sad news of Selina Huck, and I'm not quite sure, but I believe she was in Merchant of Venice. Her married name was Salima Manzoor, and she was known as Molly. Okay, so we remember them, and we remember all the others. You know, my own sister Azala, she passed away 5 years ago this week, and in their memory, I would once again appreciate everyone saying a prayer in their hearts. So we'll observe a moment of silence in the memory of all of those, and in the memory and thinking also of those who are dealing with the challenges of old age and health issues as well. So just in your hearts, remember them. Thank you. Okay, thank you. The first person that we'd like to talk about and pay tribute to is Sister Joseph Mary. And Sister Joseph Mary was a real powerhouse. You know, she was absolutely amazing, and we feel that it would be remiss for us not to mention some of the wonderful things that she did. And these are the plays that she directed: Taming of the Shrew, Antigone, and King Lear. These were 3 plays that my sister Nyaz was in. And then she also directed A Midsummer Night's Dream, The Merchant of Venice, Electra, and The Queen of Hearts. As I've said, we talked about the thespians last time, but we will look at a couple of things from those plays, okay? So this is a photograph, or a couple of photographs from King Lear. And this was directed by Sister Joseph Mary. The role of Cordelia was played by Zebun Haq, who was my classmate. And there's a picture of my sister Nyaz in the role of King Lear. I believe Khurshid Nazir is also in this picture. So there may have been others who participated in King Lear. Another play that is very memorable, and a number of people that we know quite well were in this play, okay? The Merchant of Venice. And I am going to ask Amina, who was in this play, to tell us a little bit about the photographs that I have on the screen, and also tell us a little bit about her involvement with this particular play. So Amina, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Merchant of Venice, I think anyone who's doing English, we all know about this Merchant of Venice, a very popular play. And we staged this in Holy Cross in 1964 or 5, around that time. Right on the screen, and Sister Joseph Mary was the director. And on the screen, you can see Ruby, Zaman, and Ismat. And on the left picture, and on the right is Nighat Bartley. And that's what that is Shahana Rab over there. So I was Antonio, and Ruby was, I can just read some of the cast. Over here also you can see, there's Zehra Mubarak, and she was Jessica, that's Shylock's daughter. And that is Shylock Atya Qasim. She did a great job. And next to Jessica, I think it may be Nerissa dressed as a, when they come dressed as male to bail out Antonia from the court. And in the next picture, you can see that's myself standing. The picture, that's myself. And behind me is Rubaba, who was Lorenzo, and Jessica runs away with Lorenzo. And that is Afreen, who was Bassanio. And I talked to her. She's also in Washington. She was very excited about it. And that's Ruby. Ruby did an excellent role being Portia. And Shylock was extremely good. And the costumes were, Zehra remembers her costume. It was a lovely yellow satin dress made to fit. And she liked it. And for us, it was very easy to get those, we did our shalwars and we just pulled up the shalwar near her knee and let the baggy part hang. So that's myself, Antonio, and I have color shalwar, which Shama stitched for me. I was so surprised. I said, where to get this shalwar, and we were still young those days. Shama stitched that Firoza shalwar for me. And the capes and all, like Rubaba at the back, she's wearing curtains. And she wore the curtain with the rings on it. Many people remember that. And so the other characters were, Shama was a Graciano, and Rubaba was Lorenzo, Ruby was Portia, Nerissa was Ismat, Shylock was Atia Qasim, Jessica was Zehra, and Launcelot Gobo Nighat. And that's it. And there were some others. Okay, this is the group photo we took. And this is the play we did in our common room in Holy Cross. By that time, the common room was built. Before that, we staged in British Council because there was no place in Holy Cross. So at that time, we didn't have the stage. So the stage show and all that was very simple. And here you can see that's Farzana Sheikh. There's Afreen as Bassanio, Ruby as Portia, Shylock, Atia Qasim, and that's myself, Antonio. This is Ismat Shirazi as Nerissa, that's Shama. That's Zehra Mubarak, Rubaba Karim, Molly, or Selina Manzoor, whom we lost recently. This is Rifat, and I think this is Razina. So, and there were others also. So this is a nice group photo. In those days, Merchant of Venice was recorded, was done quite frequently. And in fact, we remember seeing this by the Bristol Old Vic or Shakespearean Theatre Company that came to Bangladesh. They did the Bishop's Candlesticks, Candida, and Hamlet. And another one did this Shylock. And the first time my father read this Merchant of Venice for me, and he was sharing it with me and trying to tell us what my father was. And those days, the theaters used to take place in the Institute of Engineers Auditorium. And as my father was general secretary and a founder of that Institute of Engineers, we got to see many plays, everything, whatever was happening there. That was like our Broadway. So, and Merchant of Venice, also Sister Joseph Mary was very good at that direction. And Zehra remembers one thing, that when she was talking, Sister said, for herb, she said herb. And so Zehra imitated her and said herb. And then Sister smiled very sweetly. And then she told us the difference between the British accent and the American accent. And she told Zehra, no, you're correct. You just say herb. Don't say like me. So these pronunciations and other things were very important. How to do the stage, facing and talking. We didn't have much of a stage, just the curtain was there. And but the play pulled off very well. Nowadays, they don't like to do Merchant of Venice because it's like anti-Semitism, making Shylock the Jew and trying to put him down. Although Shakespeare compensates by giving him that beautiful speech, hath not a Jew eyes? Do we not, when you tickle us, do we not laugh? Do we not also cry? So that is a very great speech over there, and by Portia, Quality of Mercy. But I believe during the Hitler did promote this. He made quite a few shows of Merchant of Venice. So, but nowadays they don't like this anti-Semitic part of the putting down the Jews. I think I think that's about all I have to say about
Yeah.
Merchant of Venice right now.
I was
That's
just
all.
wondering if Ruby is with us and whether she wanted to make a few comments. If she's with us, I'm not sure. I don't
I
see the
don't
list of
see her.
participants.
Maybe
Yes, I
there
am
All right,
there.
there.
She is here. She's here.
she is here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. It's nice to see. I didn't see any of. Maybe I'll have to go to the gallery and see who else
Yeah.
has joined. But anyway, so it's nice to be in this Zoom meeting, and I'm glad that Amina invited me to this, and I'm glad to participate. But the thing is that Amina has said practically everything about Merchant of Venice, and then I'm really amazed at her memory. She remembers all the names of all those participants. Those who acted, and I could only name a few. I think my memory is fading. So the only thing that I can add here is that when the mistake that I made the first time when I went on stage, and I just I was so nervous, and I just, instead of saying this thing about such is the will of a living daughter curbed by the will of a dead father, I just said the opposite. Such is the will of a dead daughter curbed. And then I just felt that, oh my God, now everybody's going to laugh at me. But thank goodness nobody caught on to it. And I managed to finish the scene, and I went backstage and I was nearly in tears, and Sister Joseph Mary was so good, and she said, no honey, you did wonderful, excellent. She was the only one who knew that I had made a mistake, but that was one of the things that I remembered, because and the other thing is that Sister Joseph Mary never let me forget about this quality of mercy speech. She has always been, whenever I met her, even as late as 2013, I think. That was the last time I met her. And she said, oh, here is Portia. Somebody else was there. This is Portia. She and her quality of mercy speech was so good. And I said, my goodness, she still went on about that. But it was an excellent production, I think. And I was amazed at Atiya's performance as Amina, because Atiya never came across as, somebody who could act. She was so into her studies, and she was intellectual. She was, very serious and all that. And when she was chosen as Shylock, and we had our doubts, was whether she could pull it off. And she did an excellent job. And then she was also in Midsummer Night's Dream. Was she Puck? I forget. She was.
Thank you, Ruby. Nice to see you here. I know usually it would have been normally been very early for you, but I believe you're not in California. Anyway, so Sister Joseph Mary directed other plays. One I would like to mention is Electra, in which my sister Ghazala, my late sister, was Electra. Okay, so in these slides we see some of the people who acted in that play. The part of Orestes was played by Tazeen Murshid, and Queen was played, of course, who happens to be Electra, was played by my sister Ghazala, and Rosanna Rab was her sister play. It was Chrysosthenes. And I'm going to ask my sister Niaz's understudy to read a little bit about Sister Joseph Mary and also about Electra. So Durdana, thank you.
Thank you, Raza. So I think first I will read something very sweet, written about the nuns and particularly Sister Joseph Mary in the curtain call. And after that, then I will, talk about Electra. So in the curtain call, it says that in the 1960s, the Holy Cross sisters in their white ankle-length habits, the wimples covering their hair, were mysterious creatures. Students wondered whether they had to shave off all their hair when they became nuns. Who shaved it, and how often did they have to shave it? Sister Joseph Mary, in her white habit, her face clear of the slightest touch of makeup, was the epitome of beauty. Many years later, when the sisters had given up their habits, wore everyday but somber clothes, no longer wore wimples over their short cropped hair, Sister Joseph Mary showed some of her students a picture of herself as a young woman with a young and handsome Ronald Reagan. Sonia Omar describes how Sister Joseph Mary, who taught them English and was fond of reciting "Fair daffodils, we weep to see you haste away so soon," showed her students a picture of several young women sitting around a swimming pool with a young and handsome Ronald Reagan. Sister Joseph Mary, not a nun then, had a foot playfully on Reagan's shoulder. And this was taken from a personal conversation with Sonia. So that is really quite interesting. And then in Curtain Call, it says, had she once thought of an acting career? And if she had, why had she given it up? So when my sister Ghazala and I joined Holy Cross in 1968, that was the year they did Electra. And Sister Joseph Mary was a very meticulous and somebody who was a real perfectionist. And this started right from the moment of the casting, when she would audition for the parts. And I remember in the case of Electra, she couldn't decide who to give the part of Electra to, Anne Orestes. So there were two. She tried Ghazala, as Electra. Then she tried Tazeen Murshid as Electra. Then she tried Ghazala as Orestes. Then she tried Tazeen Murshid as Orestes. And so this went on back and forth until finally she said, I can't decide. I'll have to call, let me call some of the other sisters. But finally, then she chose Ghazala as Electra and Tazeen Murshid as Orestes. And I remember that the rehearsals, she would make us go over and the lines over and over again, and correct our pronunciation and check everything. And then before the play was put on, we would all, she would gather us or the whole cast around her, and then we would pray, for the success of the play. So it was a really solemn and serious moment. And I guess especially for a play like Electra, I think it put us all in the mood for it. And then once the play was over, then she would have like a post-mortem of the play. I know Ruby mentioned that she had made some mistakes, but Sister Joseph Mary sort of, said, don't worry, everything was fine and was lovely. But Ghazala remembered, that how critical Sister Joseph Mary had been. Because even though Ghazala she was amazing as Electra. I remember when she, the whole stage was dark, and then Ghazala comes in, Electra comes in bearing this urn with the ashes. And there was pin drop silence in the audience. And as soon as the light fell on her, you could hear this sort of collective gasp, She had a great deal, a great stage presence, and she was perfect as Electra. So here I just want to read a little bit from, we had written this book, Bengal Rag, which was like a fictionalized memoir of our time in Bangladesh. And in that, we had talked about Electra and the whole production. Of course, in this passage that I'm going to read, the names have been changed, because it was a fictionalized memoir. But this is about Electra, and I'm going to read from here. So when the curtains came down, she was engulfed by a crowd of people, all wanting to congratulate her and introduce her to their brothers. But then sister dragged her off to the dressing room. From the capacious folds of her habit, she took out a little notebook in which she had jotted down each and every mistake Geti had made. Geti was Ghazala. All the words she had mispronounced or forgotten were there, along with the fact that her dress had revealed too much. Who tied it for you? She asked. It was just a sari which had been draped in the Grecian manner. And one of the Bengali girls, Uma, one of the Bengali girls who lived in the hostel and always wore saris, had tied it for her. So Sister Joseph Mary says, I'll have to do it myself for the other performances. When I saw you on the stage, I thought at once that I would fix it the moment you came off. And then I realized you don't ever come off the stage. You are on it all the time. Geti had expected more than a backhanded compliment after her strenuous effort. And when Sister saw the tears about to well up, she cupped her face in her hands and said gently, I am only pointing out your mistakes because I want you to be absolutely perfect. It may look as if I am tearing you apart, but actually you were very good. Do you know what Father Bernard said? He said, my word, it was marvelous. Father Bernard, again not his real name, was principal of the boys' college, and the nuns cherished any compliment given by him. So this was about Electra, and I must say we had it was really a great performance. And then I noticed that after that there was only one other play which Sister Joseph Mary directed after that. And of course, we then moved from Bangladesh. We left Bangladesh in '68.
Thank you, Durdana. So I also wanted to include this, which is an interesting news item about an event that took place in the year 2000. Is the Golden Jubilee of Holy Cross College. And they did, among other things, a scene from Antigone at that time. And Amina might just briefly mention this because she played the role of Antigone in this reading, and Zebul Nissa was Ismene. So Amina, do you just want to make a comment on this particular event?
This was done in 2001. It was in 2000, the Golden Jubilee of Holy Cross College. Actually, the college started first, and then the school came, Holy Cross School. This is like a memory for Sister Joseph Mary, who had been always directing plays, and so many plays, and herself so keen in doing this. So there were also other plays at that time. On this 2000 Golden Jubilee of Holy Cross, on the second day was this performed, Antigone and Ismene. So Ismene is Zebun and I'm Antigone. So Ismene is from the 61 batch and I'm from 65 batch. So this was like Sister Joseph Mary reveling in her days, you know, when she did it with the older students, and that was a very nice feeling. So how we would trot into college and she would come into the common room and we would rehearse and have little snacks, and she was telling us. So it was just a part of the Antigone where Antigone is talking with her sister for the burial of the brother, which the king won't give. But with it, there were other plays also. Shakespeare's Macbeth was done, and that was done by the 61 batch Niaz. These were just portions. So Antigone was also just a portion. Then there was also a Tennessee Williams, The Glass Menagerie, that was done. Charles George, When Shakespeare's Ladies Meet. And in The Glass Menagerie, Amanda of 61 batch took part, Laura of 64, Amanda, Arifa Rahman of 61 played Amanda, and Shahana Khan, that's Shahana Rab, from 64 batch played Laura. So we remember Shahana again in this. And in the Charles George, when Shakespeare's Ladies Meet, there was Portia, done by Nehrir Khan, 94 batch, Catherine, Shama Aftab, 93 batch, Ophelia, Naira Khan, 96 batch. These Nehrir and Naira are Mushni's daughters. Desdemona was done by Farhana Farid, 97 batch. And Juliet was done by Tabassum Binte Haq, 94 batch. And Cleopatra was by Saima Islam, 93 batch. And there was a narrator, and that was Ruby, Hasina Zaman, 64 batch. In Holy Cross, the interesting part was that people would be there, like I was in science, so I was there only for 2 years. And those who would do graduation, they would be there for 4 years. So they got chance to do more plays with the thespians than we did. But luckily, when I came from Shillong and I just went and visited to pay my courtesy call to Sister Augustine Marie, because Holy Cross Sisters had a role in sending us to that school in Shillong. But as I came in, Sister Augustine Marie admitted me. You know, it was just a walkover admission. So she said, what is she going to do sitting at home? Let her come to college. So it was in the middle of the year, but however, it was good. I met so many friends and it was delightful because I was 7 years away from Dhaka. So one day Sister Francilia called me and she gave me this, she asked me to narrate something. So from Loreto, we had just finished doing Hiawatha. I was a narrator in that, and so I narrated the beginning speech, the Great Spirit, the Creator, and all this sort of thing. So I understood that must have been an audition, and she immediately casted me for As You Like It as Oliver. So Shahana was Celia, again Shahana was Celia, and I was Oliver. And there were other pictures also in that was Najma Haq and Afreen and Kamar, and there were others. That was staged in British Council around 63 beginning or 62, because I joined in 62, the beginning of December. And as Niaz also remembers and says how Sister Joseph Mary trained and showed us all the voice and this and that. Here, I would just like to add, there was an interesting thing in Loreto. We went to Loreto Convent Shillong, but there was another Loreto Convent Darjeeling. There are actually 13 Loretos in India at that time. So Loreto Darjeeling was also a hostel. And there, if you all remember, Vivian Leigh and Julie Christie, they were students there. Julie Christie has some Indian blood, and maybe Vivian Leigh too. And Mother Berkmans was our instructor for this acting and all. And actually she trained them. We don't know much about that because she trained Vivian Leigh and Julie Christie for, you know, all this, the elocution and all that. And then she was in our school in Loreto, Shillong when we went, but she was a retired nun and not teaching or anything. And I don't know how she took a liking to me or whatever it is. She would take me alone into the hall and give me all sorts of training, how to throw the voice, how to breathe, because we had no mics in those days. So without the mic, it was how to throw, how to begin the word, how to end it. She said, ending the word is very important and beginning the word is also very important. So, and how to walk, how to stand in a triangle, and so many other things. So that was, and another part was that I was mostly taking all the male roles when I was in the girls' school and college. It was until I joined Prometheans that I got a girls' role. I became Anne in All My Sons. So I think that's...
I think we're going to have to move on because we have quite a few things on the agenda.
Yeah.
So I would like to remember some of the other directors. And of course, foremost among them would be Professor Abdul Matin, because he directed quite a few of our plays, which I will briefly mention, but then I'll also mention the names of the other directors. David Bradley of the British Council, who directed The Winter's Tale, James Mulholland, who directed The Importance of Being Earnest, Scott Rutherford from the USIS, who directed All My Sons, and again from the British Council, David King, who directed Come On Jeeves, and Robert Sykes, who directed She Stoops to Conquer. And then, of course, one of our own, Alauddin Zaheen, directed the last play of the Prometheans, The Misanthrope. So Professor Matin, of course, we had a long association with, and we owe a lot to him. He directed 3 plays with Prometheans, The Rainmaker, Harvey, and The Unexpected Guest. But he also directed a couple of other plays that I was personally involved in, and so were some of the other Prometheans. The first one was Memory of Two Mondays, which was done with Students' Drama Society. And here is a photograph of the cast and crew of A Memory of Two Mondays. And this includes several members of the cast, actually all the members of the cast. And I won't try to identify everybody, though we know most of the people here. But Professor Matin is in the center of this picture. And on either side, you see Shah Alam Chaudhry and S.M. Khalid, who were on the executive of the Students' Drama Society, under the banner of which we did this play at the USIS auditorium. People in the cast include, third from left standing is Raza Chaudhry. Next to him, of course, is Imtiaz Hussain, who has passed away, and Shamim Zaman, who's passed away as well. I'm behind Professor Matin, and I had the role of Bert in the play. Wasim Haider and Toby Bedell are also at the back there. And in front of them, you see other members of the cast, Sirajul Majid Mamoon, Farida Majid, my sister Niaz, my late brother-in-law Siddiq Bhai, and next to him is Barbara Folk of the USIS, who was very helpful in this play. Another member of the cast is M.A. Qayyum Lincoln, in front of, is one of the people in front on the right-hand side. The Rahman twins can also be seen there. Some of you will know him. I am going to read a short little excerpt from the book about Professor Matin. And he was somebody who really enjoyed the theater, and of course could have been an actor, as my sister pointed out in the book. Professor Abdul Matin, who, like Sister Joseph Mary, taught students, but also directed many of them in plays, might, like her, also have been an actor. In his case, however, his father disliked his love of acting. Mr. Matin's father had not approved of his son studying English literature, and it had only been at the pleading of an aunt that he had relented. But what he disliked intensely was his son acting in the amateur English plays he seemed so fond of. Among the plays he acted in were The Merchant of Venice and Othello, and later with the amateurs which he founded, Julius Caesar and the Bishop's Candlesticks. His wife, Begzadi Mahmuda Nasir, who later founded Central Women's College and then Central Women's University, recounts in her autobiography how angry her father-in-law had been with her young husband when he came back at midnight after a third staging of Othello. He told his son, "Get rid of the black makeup and see me before you have your dinner." Mr. Matin went upstairs to his room, washed and changed, and then went down to his father. Begzadi Mahmuda Nasir also went downstairs to the dining room. She heard her father-in-law berating her husband. "You have acted the role of Othello 3 times. I don't want you to act in Othello a 4th time. I don't like it." Mr. Matin left the room quietly and went to the dining room, where his wife and mother were waiting with his dinner. Begzadi Mahmuda Nasir was amused at her husband's discomfiture. His mother asked, "What is there in the play that makes you stage it repeatedly?" In the face of this violent opposition from his father, it must have been hard for Mr. Matin to continue to act occasionally or direct other young people bitten by the acting bug. Nevertheless, he didn't give up his association with the theater. And of course, for that, we are eternally grateful. Two plays that he directed for us were, of course, The Memory of Two Mondays, which I've mentioned, and you see Imtiaz Hussain in the role of Gus, and that was a precursor of some of the tragic figures in Arthur Miller's plays, as in Death of a Salesman and All My Sons. Restraining Imtiaz or Gus in this picture is Shamim Zaman, the late Shamim Zaman, and of course you also see Sadiq Bhai in this picture. And Farida Majid has jumped onto the counter because apparently what has happened is they saw mice in the warehouse where this play takes place. And another important role, and of course, Imtiaz always played father figure type roles. And another important role that he played, a brilliant performance actually, very memorable, was the role of the father, H.C. Curry, in the play The Rainmaker by Richard Nash. Others in this photograph are, of course, myself being slapped by Putan Amin. Putan really enjoyed the scene. And my sister, who played the sister, my sister in play, Lizzie Curry, looking on in horror. Anyway, that was a wonderful show, and we all enjoyed it. I would like to read a little bit about Imtiaz, who, of course, is no longer with us. And this is what I would like to read about Imtiaz. Imtiaz played two other roles after The Rainmaker, Polixenes in The Winter's Tale, and the distinguished Dr. Chumley in Harvey. In The Winter's Tale, Imtiaz played the part of Polixenes, king of Bohemia, and friend of Leontes, king of Sicilia. He is one of the older generation in the play, a generation that grows 16 years older during the course of the play. In the second part of the play, we see him in the role of protective father. He is concerned about his son Florizel's frequent absences, and Florizel was played by Brother Azadar. And along with Camillo, spies on him, and Camillo was played by my brother-in-law, Sadiq Zaman. To his dismay, he discovers that his son is romantically interested in the shepherd's daughter. By the end of the play, however, the shepherd's daughter is revealed to be of royal parentage and thus a suitable bride for a prince. Mary Chase, the Pulitzer Prize-winning author of Harvey, describes the manner of Imtiaz's character in the play Harvey as confident, pompous, and lordly. And that was, Harvey was the last play that Imtiaz was in. Okay, and this is the only, we don't have any pictures from Harvey, unfortunately. So Dr. Chumley, played by Imtiaz, is the senior partner at Chumley's Rest, and such is his eminence that he rarely sees the patients, leaving that responsibility to his much younger colleague, Dr. Sanderson. There is also a vulnerable and softer side to him, which we are given a glimpse of when he confides his secret dreams and desires to Elwood. In the Promethean's production of the play, this was one of the most memorable moments. And it was in this scene above all that one could truly appreciate Imtiaz's great skill and range as an actor. Harvey was the last production of the Prometheans in which Imtiaz acted. We have seen other members of the group retire from the stage because of career and personal commitments. At about this time, Imtiaz began his long and illustrious involvement in the investment business, beginning with the sale of stocks and investment funds. And I remember buying National Shipping Corporation stock from him, and eventually going on to his appointment as chairman of the Dhaka Stock Exchange. Also, at some point around the same time, romance seems to have entered the picture. Unbeknownst to his family and even to most of his friends, Imtiaz got married, and this was no doubt another factor in his abandoning the stage. Now, Harvey was an important play for a number of reasons. It was the last play for Imtiaz, of course, but it also happened to be the first play for a number of people. You know, among them, Shah Rukh Ahmed, and this is probably the only play that she participated in. Her brother Miran, who was in it, had acted in The Winter's Tale as Autolycus. But it was also the first production in which some of the Sheikh family and also Ismat Shirazi participated. And they were very important at this time. Initially, when we started out, women weren't allowed to play on stage with men. And of course, the Rainmaker, when we did that, my sister was the only female, and she was the only one around who was available to act on stage, Farida Majid having gotten married in the meantime. So we have a lot to say about the Sheikh and Shirazi families. Fortunately, some of them are here with us, and they might want to make a few comments. Here is a picture showing the three members of the Sheikh family who participated in our plays. Shama only was in one play, The Importance of Being Earnest. And Yasmin, who joined us and is with us today, he was in 4 plays: Harvey, The Importance of Being Earnest, All My Sons, and The Unexpected Guest. And Shahid, who also has joined us, was in Harvey, The Importance of Being Earnest, and She Stoops to Conquer. Shama did act the role of Lady Macbeth in a play reading that we did at the British Council. And, the role of Lady Macbeth in The Ill-Fated Macbeth that Professor Matin directed for Dhaka University never got on stage. And the late Shirin Haseeb was Lady Macbeth in that particular play. Here's a picture of Shahid Sheikh, and Shahid was in the role, played the role of Algernon Moncrief, and this takes place in his flat. It's a scene from the first act, and I'm playing part of Jack Worthing, the other person in this picture. Here's a picture of Ismat Shirazi, and she played the role of Gwendolyn Fairfax in this play. The only other member of the Shirazi family who acted with us was Moeen in All My Sons, where he had a big part. I have a little bit to read about the Sheikh and Shirazi contribution. I will also just put this picture up. It's not a very clear one, but it's the only one we have with Farida Dastani in it. It also has Noreen Ali, who did a brilliant job on the costumes. We also have Miran in this picture, and Jim Mulholland, who directed it. And that's Shama on the right, by the way. Ismat sitting in front, and Yasmin on the other side of Noreen Ali. So this is what I'd like to read about their contribution. The Sheikh and Shirazi families were notable for their progressive attitudes and interest in the arts. They were also generous and hospitable, and both their homes were centers where young people, men as well as women, were welcome. The Shirazis at one time were the only family that owned a television in the neighborhood, and large groups of youth would gather at their home weekly to watch shows like The Fugitive. Both families encouraged artistic talent. Ismat's brother Amin was a painter. Her sister Naz went on to achieve considerable success and acclaim as an artist. Yasmin Sheikh was a student at the Art Institute, where the illustrious Zainul Abidin was one of the teachers. Mr. and Mrs. Sheikh were themselves actively involved in the theatre. They acted in and directed plays in Urdu for the Dhaka Lions Club, as well as radio plays. Particularly noteworthy was the production of Anarkali, in which Mr. Sheikh acted the role of the Emperor Akbar, and Mrs. Sheikh was Anarkali's sister, Suraya. The play was performed in 1958 and again the following year at the Engineers Institute. The involvement of the Shirazi and Sheikh families in The Importance of Being Earnest was serendipitous in another way. Wilde's play called for elaborate and elegant sets and costumes. The two families contributed significantly in these two areas. A sofa from the Shirazi home was an important piece of furniture in the London flat of Algernon Moncrief, the part that was played by Shahid. And I was wondering if either Shahid or Yasmin or both of them would like to make any comments on their involvement and Shahid, maybe you could tell us what was one of the roles that you played that you remember. And then we will give Yasmin an opportunity to talk a little bit. Perhaps she might tell us a little bit about All My Son, we'll look at shortly. Okay, so Shahid, any comments?
Well,
You're still
okay, I
with
think
us?
I've been in at the deep
Okay,
end by Yasmin, who I don't see in the list of people here, and I don't know whether Ghazala is participating or not. When we spoke a couple of days ago, I told you I just have a memory blank about most of the things that we did. I can't remember one of the plays at all. I do remember this play. I do remember we had a lot of fun doing it. Um, Very little for me to add because you said so much. So I'm not sure how much more I can add in praise of myself or my family or the Shirazis who were our neighbors, as a matter of fact. So little for me to add on this, except to say that well, I don't know. It was a great time. It was a great time. Those were great years. They were great. We were very lucky to have people like Jim Mulholland or David Bradley. Professor Matin was, of course, an exceptional person. I'd just like to share a little anecdote. One of our friends, one of my friends who was a colleague in Notre Dame College, Ashfaq Ahmad, he passed away some years ago and he retired as an ambassador, Bangladesh ambassador. And he was telling me at one of his postings, I think he was a first secretary at the time, somewhere in Europe, and the person asked him where he had studied. So he said, well, I studied, I think he was at St. Joseph's and then Notre Dame College and Dhaka University. And the person said, and after that? So he says, no, we didn't study. I mean, nothing after that, after Dhaka University. And he said the diplomat told him, he says, I'm quite amazed because the kind of knowledge that you possess is what we see normally from Ivy League universities or universities in Britain or Europe. And Ashfaq told him, he says, we were lucky to have some very great teachers in Dhaka who were like mentors for all of us. And Professor Mateen was one of them. Those who were in the university remember Sarwar Murshid, I think, Professor Sarwar Murshid, Dr. Sajjad Hussain, in Notre Dame too. I mean, I remember Father Tim, I remember Father Graham. These were exceptional people, really exceptional. If what we are today, I think a lot of it is due to those people. So I can't say anything about Sister Joseph Mary because I never scaled the walls of Holy Cross College, so I don't know. Yeah, but otherwise, to think, you have to forgive me. There are really no anecdotes that come to mind, or anything that might be of interest to people at this day, 50 years on. Okay.
Thank you so much, Shahid. Thank
You're
you for your
welcome.
comments.
Yeah.
Okay. So we owe a lot, of course, as Prometheans to the thespians, because a lot of as I mentioned, it was difficult getting young ladies to come on stage with us. In many cases, parents wouldn't allow it. But there were many thespians who joined the Prometheans, and I don't think this is a complete list. And I could have added Tazeen's name because she also acted in The Misanthrope. But there's some disagreement as to whether the Misanthrope was actually a Prometheans production or not. Of course, it is true. By the time we did The Misanthrope, all the people who founded the Prometheans with the production of The Rainmaker were no longer involved. So, and Amina, of course, is one of those. And she acted in a couple of roles with the thespians. And of course, she's told us quite a bit about her career in acting. And here are some of the roles that she has played. And we will actually move on to To All My Sons and The Unexpected Guest, which were two plays that she was involved in. And she played the part of Anne. My sister Niaz played the role of Kate. The main character, of course, is the character of Joe Keller, who was played by Hassan Askari. And in this picture on the right-hand side, you see my sister Niaz and also Puton Amin, who's the son. And moving on, here is a picture of the cast. And you will recognize most of the people here. So in the front row, we have Yasmin Salim Khatri, Hassan Askari, and my sister. Behind them, you have the director, Scott Rutherford of the USIS, and the little boy, there is Moin Shirazi, who now lives in Shanghai, where he has achieved some degree of fame as the Catman of Shanghai. So actually, you might see his YouTube video where he's out there feeding cats, one of his hobbies. And in the back is, of course, right in the center, Amina herself, and on she's between John Amin and my brother Asghar. We also have a photograph of the entire cast and crew. So you will also see that Imtiaz was involved, even though he was not on stage, he was sort of involved backstage. And so a lot of people here we recognize. I won't call out all their names. I don't want to, have this meeting run on beyond the scheduled time. And what I will suggest is that perhaps I'm going to ask individual people to share some thoughts before we move on to the last item on the agenda, which is recognizing the contribution of Chinku Alauddin Zaheen. Okay, so Amina, would you like to say something about All My Sons and the Unexpected Guest?
Yes, we did All My Sons first. That was around 65 or 66. It was staged in the USIS Cultural Center, where the press club is opposite to the press club. And Mr. Rutherford was the director, and the sets were done by Tariq Ali, and it was beautiful. It was really, in fact, there was a clap with the garden scene and the backyard when it happened. It's a post-war life and moral complexities. And the major characters were, of course, Joe Keller and the Deavers, and Deaver is the antagonist. So it's quite a powerful play, and the 3-act play by Arthur Miller. He wrote it in 1946, and it was already staged in 47, and it went on. And imagine we did it quite soon, considering that. This was the play that actually, this is the time that Yasmin Rang and the Sheikhs, they got me into Prometheans. I was already in a medical college there, and Yasmin rang and said, please, why don't you come? And I didn't think of anything, whether it's mixed or what. I said, okay, I joined. I went back, and then I found that my sister is coming along with me to the rehearsals, and Amira was a prompter. That was nice of them. But everyone, it was such a lovely group, and I had to do nothing. The boys and all, they took charge of everything. The rehearsals, getting the snacks, from where the funding came, where the directors came, or the boys were much senior to us, and they did a lot of work. I saw Imtiaz, Hassan, and there's Chinku also, but he used to be also moving around the stage, and Gullu, there's there. Even Abu Zafar used to be there standing. That's what I enjoyed, and we were treated very well. Once I mentioned this to Puton, I said, you all treated us, we had to do nothing, and you did everything. Now I know how much effort goes into putting up a play. And Puton said, yeah, we had to be very nice to you all because it was very difficult to get girls. Thank you. Oh, there was another part after that play, and it was much later that when I met Imtiaz, after I came back from the camp, I was married and with 2 kids. One day Imtiaz told me, after that All My Sons, some Dhaka film people came up and asked him, will that girl come into the movies, asking about me. Okay, cinema nambe, will he come into the movies? So I said, why you so what happened? He said, oh, I shooed them away. I told them, get lost. She's studying to become a medical student. She's studying in the medicine to become a doctor. So that was, thank you. And the unexpected guest was the other one, and this one we did in British Council.
Wait.
And of course, Mr. Matin was the director, and it was great. The hall was full, I remember. when
Just
the
put your
stage
face in
opened.
and speak.
Yasmin doesn't remember it, but it was all dark, I think, and the stage opens with the gun in a hand, with the gunshot, and Yasmin has the gun there, and there's the person dead on the wheelchair, her husband. So it was quite dramatic, and Raza was the unexpected guest. So I had to act in a wheelchair, which was nice, but everyone, I was an old lady. Richard Warwick, that means Raza's mother. And there was a little funny part which we repeated. We've done these both, that the prompting was being done, and when the prompter was behind the sofa, it's for the others. At one time, a hand showed up. The audience was in stunned silence, thinking that maybe the murderer is there back behind the sofa. But it was Farida Haq, means Rumana's Farida Huda. Farida Huda who was prompting, and probably mosquitoes were biting her or something happened, and she changed her position and the hand changed her position.
No, I can hear myself.
The dupatta, and her hand flew up. So that added some spice to the.
Here, see if you can speak. Yes.
I think Yasmin wants to say something as well.
That's
All right,
good.
so-
I'd
all right.
like to
She's the one
say a
who should be
few
speaking.
words. It was really the best time of our lives. And I was really very serious about acting, sitting in the night, mugging all my lines, taking care of the costumes. But one day my principal Abedin sir saw me, and he said, I haven't seen you around the college these days. Shunnam to tumi thete korcho. So I said, yes, sir, I've got busy with that. Now he had already lost Laili. Laili Chaudhary was my closest friend, and her brother Gauss. He used to be with us a lot backstage. I think Raza will remember Gauss. His nickname used to be Mouse. So he said, Laili did that. Laili from Bafa was taking up too much of her time. In those days, it was called Bulbul Academy of Fine Arts. And there was so much to dancing and visual arts that she could not concentrate on her work. So she asked Abedin sir that she'd like to leave college. So he was quite upset, and then she left. And then he told me that I think you sit down with me for some time in the office and you make up your mind what you really want to do. Okay, because I want your full-time commitment here. So I promised Abedin sir, okay, fine, sir, I'll stay with you. But however, it's otherwise I was really having the time of my life, as well as going on radio, as well as doing skits, and some of the work I was getting paid for. So he told me that. He said, if you're getting paid for some of the work, okay, like the igloo ice cream, the ad of igloo ice cream took me the whole day, but I had to be out of college because I was lending my voice. So he said, you can't do so many things. So I'm really very grateful to him. And as I said, grateful to the people who tutored us, and grateful to all of the friends who gave us such a nice time and opportunity. Okay, thank you, Amina.
Thank you, Yasmin. Yeah, so this was the next two plays that we did were Come On Jeeves, that were directed by David King. And in this play, Asghar Ali was one of the characters, and Afreen Khan played the part of Mrs. Spotsworth. Also, you will see Rafiq Jawani, who actually stole the show. He used to be called Jeeves, but he didn't play the part of Jeeves. And in this picture, we have Afreen, Sharmeen, and Puton. Also, acting in this play was Chinku. Chinku played the part of Colonel Blagden's the inspector, comes at the end to sort things out. You see a little glimpse of Ali Azad, who's also in this play. Chinku had been involved backstage for a year or two before he started acting. And of course, his acting career really took off. It was quite spectacular. He moved on to the role of Tony Lumpkin in the play She Stoops to Conquer. And this was an outstanding performance by him. Shahid also happened to be in this play, and Ali Azad was also in it. The part of Kate Hardcastle, the daughter of Mr. Hardcastle, who was my role, played by Rakhi Roy. Here is a picture of Alauddin Zahin, Chinku, as we knew him, with Rehana's husband, Bakar Ali, both very good-looking young people. I'm going to ask Kaisar Haq, who's been sort of waiting patiently, and I would like him to add some comments about Chinku. And I think there were lots of wonderful things that people have said about Chinku, which we included in our book. Kaisar, if you would like to say something about Chinku, perhaps read from the piece that you'd written about him, we would much appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. And I got to know Chinku when he came up to the university in 1969. He was actually 1 year senior to me, but he had dropped a year and gone wandering in what was then West Pakistan. And then he came back and joined my class in 1969. Before that, I saw him in The Misanthrope, which he directed and acted in. And that was, I remember, was quite a big success. I think the play was performed in Bailey Road. And after coming up to the university, he made it clear that his primary focus was acting and not the academic study of literature. And in first year, the department produced Dr. Faustus. I think it could have been his idea. He played Dr. Faustus brilliantly. And the play was performed at the TSC, where the acoustics are really awful, but his voice still carried, and his presence was formidable. Because we became very close friends, he would press gang me into playing minor roles. So I cannot call myself an actor, but I was forced to sort of act as an actor, you might say. So I played the chorus. Even later on, the play was, Dr. Faustus was filmed by Dhaka television and put on television. So the film may still be there somewhere in the archives of BTV. Then the 19th, as the year as the political atmosphere heated up, a lot of our academic work was disrupted. A lot of time we spent a lot of time in the streets. But even then, in 1960, 70, Chinku did not neglect dramatics. As let me read out a bit from just one paragraph from the piece which you included in your book. I had originally written it for the Dhaka University English Department magazine, and it was very kind of you to put it in your book. As 1970 rolled on, Chinku managed to play lead roles in 3 more productions. First, and to me most memorably, he played Pozzo in a production of Beckett's Waiting for Godot, directed by David King, a children's writer then attached in some capacity to the local British Council. I played an undistinguished Lucky. Shad Mori, a banker, and Jaffrey, an airline pilot, played Estragon and Vladimir, respectively. The play was put on at the British Council auditorium, as was another one not long after, a duo of Italian comedies which amply demonstrated Chinku's ability to handle light roles. Morif and Jaffrey were joined in cameo roles by yours truly, and a comely German girl called Elfrieda Bohm. Another Beckett classic, Endgame, was produced by Robert Sykes with Chinku as Ham. I forget who else were in it, perhaps Jaffrey, and 2 expatriate English persons, a man and a woman, as the roles required. The production was a success as far as acting, makeup, and the bare props. But the venue, what was then the Intercontinental, was an incongruity. When I try to recall the play, the performance is overshadowed by the glamour of the setting and the all too visible smart set in attendance. Little did we know that this incongruous production would mark the culmination of Chinku's stage career. Of course, not long after the War of Liberation started, and he unfortunately was one of those who lost his life early on in that terrible year. I can add that since I got to know him quite well as a fellow student, I would see him seriously studying books on acting. I mean, Stanislavski, Grotowski's poor theater. So he took it very seriously. And there was also a kind of philosophical angle to his interest in acting, because he was through and through a Nietzschean, and thus spake Zarathustra was always on his bedside. And he had the idea of doing a one-man show based on that dithyrambic philosophical classic, which of course he never got around to doing. Well, we all miss him, and there are so many who have passed on. Perhaps this pandemic is providing the appropriate background in which we fondly remember those who were with us once. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kaisar. Yes, certainly. You had a great talent and great potential, and it is really tragic that things ended the way that they did. But, you know, in a way, his passion and his spirit, they live on, and his legacy, I think, lives on. I will read something. In our book, we were fortunate, you know, to be able to use Kaisar's piece that he'd written about, which is really just an email, but it's very informative and very illuminating. And also our, you know, Apa Ali Amin, Chinku's mother, she allowed us to print the story of the last years of, or the last, you know, few months of his life in an article called The Disappearance, which we were allowed to also include in our book. We were fortunate to be, you know, to have that permission to use that. And actually, we had a little poem that was written by Chinku's uncle that I would like to read. And unfortunately, actually, this is another picture of Chinku. This is the play that he directed, The Misanthrope. And this is the poem that was written by Syed Ali Kabir, uncle of Chinku, and it was translated by Ali Amin. And I hope that Sarah Zakir would have been with us, or perhaps Pincho would have been with us, and perhaps they could have read it. But in their absence, I will read this poem. In which unknown grave do you lie with your friend Khusro, who took part in your last rites? Did the green grass grow on your grave? Did the birds cry mournfully? And did the women of the households around ask who the fair and handsome young boy was? And who could be the other one, a true friend, the pure symbol of a Bengali youth? And this was translated by Ali Amin. And that is a sad note on which to end. But I want us also never to forget that, you know, that he was a person full of life. And, he, you know, we think of him with admiration and awe, and we admire his passion and his intellect. Professor Huck describes him as a Nietzschean, but let's not also forget that he was a very human, very ordinary he was a young boy, the boy next door, you know, and he was full of life. And I would like to read the comments of a few people who allowed us again to use their comments in our book, and I would like to share them with you so that we see, you know, how he still, in the words of Tazin Murshid, how he made our lives rich. So here are some comments. The first comment is a comment from his mother. I heard from others, young girls used to say when they passed our house at Eskadon Gardens, they would say, Tony Lumpkin's house. That gave me the idea that Tinku played the role of Tony Lumpkin. And Pinchu, his brother, wrote, I remember Chinku Bhaiya wore a red waistcoat and he projected a dominant image on stage with expansive body language, moving with long strides. Comment by Kushi Kabir. I also remember a TV play Chinku acted in Bangla, and I was most impressed to see him act with as much ease in Bangla, as we all knew he was more proficient in English, as you mentioned. In those days, the Bangla medium, English medium divide was felt, and often quite clearly. The day we heard the news about Khosrow and Chinku, I remember so clearly the feeling about how this could not be true. Comment from Laika Doha, who acted in Troops to Conquer. Kabir, welcome. Laika said, I remember a warm and loving Chinku was funny and playful. His advice about disco dancing at the after theater party was to imagine you were toweling your back with a huge towel. Hilarious, loved his sense of humor, and remember him fondly. And on that note, I would like to thank everyone for your participation and for your support over all this time, you know, and after such a long time. And, you know, I hope that in some way or other, we continue to remain in touch and we continue to celebrate what we achieved and what we shared. And I don't know, you know, I hope that some or other things that we did will live on in a way, you know, some way, whether it's in art or music or film. And it's nice to see a Bangladeshi movie getting nominated for an Oscar. I haven't seen it. Hope it's a good one. But somehow or other, you know, this never, as I say, we forget, but a lot of it is remembered. A lot of it lives on in some way or other, as a lot of these people and a lot of these experiences live on in our hearts. And it's so wonderful to be able to share them. I will stop the recording, but I will keep the meeting going so that if people have things to share, and if there are things that you wanted to say and didn't get a chance to say, you might have a chance to say them. Okay? All right, so I'm stopping the recording.